thank you each and every one of you to be a part of our conversation. So today what we're going to do is going to keep it very simple. So we have got myself, Biswajith, and also Sugumar, and we are going to have kind of a fireside chat and understand what each other's viewpoint is about the industry and where exactly is the industry heading, right? And also come to have a conversation around certain areas of digital transformation, or some of the cloud computing, some of the new innovations that have been happening with Dell Technologies, right? And keeping all those things in picture. So first, Sugumar, hi, welcome, and thank you for your presence over here. So Sugumar, we have been hearing in the market that there's a lot of buzz going around digital transformation. Right? Anywhere you go, any industry you go, there's a whole bunch of conversations around digital transformation. I do understand it has been happening for quite a number of years, right? And we are seeing a lot of new innovations coming around those digital transformation. So what do you think? What is the role of hybrid IT, right, in the area of digital transformation?
Well, so digital transformation, as we all come across regularly, is something that businesses are moving more and more digital and want the use of technology as a business enabler, right? So in terms of where digital transformation can help an organization is, one, it can increase their reach. It can definitely help address some of the process challenges that they might be having, and also give them new avenues for business. Now, hybrid IT, if you really look at, is the way forward, because almost every organization that we talk to today has been using multiple cloud technologies, be it public cloud, be it private cloud, be it hybrid cloud. And what we hear from all of our customers, 81% of them have been using at least more than one cloud provider. It could be a Microsoft Azure, it could be a AWS, or it could be a GCP, or it could be anybody else as well. Plus, they have an on-prem solution as well as maybe a co-location facility as well. So given this kind of a wide use cases that each of these public cloud and the hybrid and the private cloud solutions offer, it is always prudent for every CIO to look at leveraging the technology to address their business capabilities and to be able to deliver the best-in-class services to the businesses. And with this background, multiple clouds, having a isolated multiple cloud infrastructure definitely is a complex situation, which not everybody wants to be in. So leveraging a multi-cloud strategy where you pick up what is the best available in each service provider and using that capabilities to deliver outcomes for your business is the best way to go forward. And in my opinion, IT transformation is the foundation for any digital transformation to happen. And IT transformation starts with having consistent operations, consistent access to services, and ensuring that your team, your people, process, and technology is standard across all of these use cases. So multi-cloud should not be a complexity. It should be more of a seamless access to resources that are required. So that is what I feel would be the starting point for any organization to be able to deliver the digital transformation outcome and be more successful in their approach.
Thank you. Yeah, I understand, because the number of multi-cloud providers are there. They operate on various modalities, right, and various economics of it. It all depends on laws of gravity, also laws of economics, as well as laws of the land, right? So obviously there are multiple models. Customers do have to take out some time to go and analyze which is the best model for them, right?
So Vishwa, so of course, digital transformation is something that is a talk of the town. Everybody wants to get through this particular capability in their organization. So where do you think Dell Technologies plays a role in a digital transformation?
Yeah, so before we go and talk about Dell's role in digital transformation, especially I'm coming from a very background of server industry, right? Let me give a perspective of it. Now, before we go and say, okay, what exactly is the changes happening in the OEM market? What is happening is that there's a lot of changes happening in the area of workloads. The applications are evolving. The applications are becoming massively resource hungry, right? And not only that, it's not only the data center where it is the growth is there, but also there's a lot of focus on the edge locations. Because now if you look at the trend, more and more data is processed at the edge rather than a data center. Right? So you need some kind of an infrastructure which can cater to those things, typically in two specific areas, right? In the data center space specifically, right? If you look at that, you need servers which are very powerful enough, right? It can execute a lot of commands, especially AI coming into picture, ML coming into picture. You need a lot of horsepower though, right? Similarly, at the edge locations, you will need systems or machines which are compatible in those areas, which are compatible in those remote locations, which can withstand any kind of environmental challenges and so on, right? So that's the trend, what we're seeing in terms of applications. So parallelly, what is happening in the industry is that a lot of changes are happening in terms of your CPU. A lot of changes is happening in terms of your PCI devices and so on. Just for instance, if you take, there's a new launch which has happened from Intel, right? So they've come up with the latest generation of series of processors which they termed as Sapphire Rapids. Similarly, AMD has also come up with the latest processors called Genova, right? Now, if you look at these processors, they are performance heavy, right? You have got Intel CPU which can scale up to 60 cores now per CPU. That's kind of a number you're talking about. Similarly, if you look at AMD, they can scale up to 96 cores per CPU, right? Now, not only that, the underlying technology is also changing. If you look at the kind of memory speeds we are talking about, the generation 5 memory speeds, you can now operate at 4800 MTS, right? Similarly, if you look at the PCI speeds at the latest generation, the PCI 5 based Gen 5 actually offers you double the speed what the previous version of PCIs could offer. Now, so what's going to happen is that there are going to be much more devices which are going to be much more powerful in nature. With the kind of speeds we're talking at the PCI level, your GPU cards are going to become massively powerful, right? And more GPU-related workloads are evolving in the industry, right? If you look at the AI industry, even if you look at a VDI industry, you would need such kind of GPU resources. So similarly, with the latest generation, you can handle much more GPU cards in a single server. If you look at the other trend, apart from GPU, now networking is also one more key criteria. Gone are the days where we used to talk about 10/25 gig networking. Now you have got network cards which can scale up to 200 Gbps per port, right? But to handle that kind of traffic, you definitely need something like a PCI 5, right? So that's happening in the industry as of now. Look at the hard drive space with the latest ET3.S version hard drives. Hard drives are becoming sleeker. So hence you're able to accommodate more and more hard drives in the server, especially if you look at workloads like software-defined storage, HCI coming into picture, right? So you would need that kind of a capacity at the server level. Right? That's a trend what is happening in the industry. Now, coming to the question of yours, what is happening with Dell, right? Obviously, we have to evolve around with them, right? So we have come up with the latest generation of servers, which is called as the 16th generation, right? And it has a massive portfolio in that, which basically incorporates all these technologies and delivers a better performance for the customers, not only just performance, but performance per dollar, right? And we have various thought process philosophies around building these server platforms, right? So that's something which is happening in the industry and what we are going to do. But let me ask you one question. Now we understand that the transformation is happening. Hybrid IT is the go ahead, or multi-cloud is the go ahead in the future. Now, what are the significant challenges faced by CIO in a typical hybrid environment, right? IT environment. What do you see? What are the problems you see from CIOs? What do they talk to you? What are concerns they express to you, and how do we go ahead and help them around?
So that's a great question, Vishwa. So what we come across most of these organizations is in the past have adopted a cloud first strategy where there was a lift and shift of most of the workloads from on-prem to public cloud or co-location to a public cloud. What has happened with that kind of a setup is because the applications were not tuned for a public cloud infrastructure. Second, the workload may not be so much suitable for a public cloud deployment, because when you go from an on-prem infrastructure to a public cloud, the architecture is quite significantly different in the past, right? So what challenges that they have faced is either they have not been able to leverage all the capabilities that the public cloud offers. Second, they also have had challenges with respect to the cost factor coming into picture there, because the infrastructure was never optimized for the workload, and the workload was never optimized for the infrastructure that was there in the cloud. So what resulted with that is significant outflow of cash for these organizations, which they realize within a few months that the cloud spend is on the high and they don't really have a very good control of it. Second, is third rather is the complexity of managing multiple infrastructure, because the IT team which was managing the on-prem infrastructure had no visibility of how to use the cloud. Cloud was deployed and managed by a very different set of people. Now, these set of people who are managing cloud do not really have a very good understanding of an IT infrastructure. So there were gaps between in the competencies between the different teams. The result of these complexity was there were a lot of potential risks for the organization from a security point of view, and also from the complexity which they have to manage, train people to keep them up to date on what is available. That was something which has always been creating a lot of trouble. So what is happening today is a lot of organizations have started to look at DevOps as a methodology, where they want to have both the use cases taken care in a better way. And what happens with solutions like this and capabilities where you're able to have a seamless experience across on-prem and public cloud, and wherever the public cloud could be, right? Or even on an edge, because that was one of the use cases you were highlighting about. Edge is where the digital and the physical worlds meet. So how do you have a consistent experience wherever the workload is running, be it on-prem, be it at the edge, or be it in a public cloud, or even in a co-located facility? So that is where more and more organizations are focusing their efforts today on, to make it as simple as possible, as seamless for the organization, and at a click of a button to choose where the workload should ideally get deployed.
That's rightly said.
So Vishwa, of course, we hear a lot of customers looking at the hybrid deployments and moving towards more and more multi-cloud deployment of their workloads across, right? How in customers' day-to-day activities, if you look at, they have to deal with multiple complexities. How, as Dell Technologies solutions, are well suited, or how do you address these typical challenges? Do they still have to spend a lot of time managing this infrastructure?
Yes, that's a very valid question. Now, as you said that there are already complexities around managing multiple clouds and multiple environments. Now, we from Dell Technologies try our best to actually minimize that kind of laborious work, day zero, day one operations for the customers, especially when it comes to server infrastructure, right? Now, what do we do is that, see, there are few things which we need to focus, and that's one of our philosophy, a few of our philosophies. Number one, before even they deploy any kind of infrastructure, we help the customer to identify the right product or right infrastructure for them, right? How do we do that? If you look at the latest generation of servers, what we have, number one is that we have a policy of doing it as a purpose built. So when we say purpose built, these are actually built for specific workloads, specific use cases, and specific customers, right? Gone are the days where you buy a server, you fit in the amount of memory, fit in the right number of cores, see for features if they can fit, if not just compromise on it, right? But what we have done now is, for most of our workload, you can talk about any workload. You can talk about a regular virtualized environments in a data center, which is the mainstream service which we have. Or if the customer is actually looking at to deploy AI, ML, or even a VDI solution. So we have got specialized products or specific products which are really designed for them, right? They no more need to customize things. It's all readily built. So it is purpose built in nature. So that's one thing which we help the customer to decide the products correctly after analyzing what exactly is the requirement, right? Now, there's a lot of intelligence built within the hardware itself. While many CSPs can provide you different tools to monitor, manage, try their best to gel around with all the VM movement across from on-prem to public cloud and so on. What we also do, we try to make the customer's life easier by making the life cycle of the server components much more easier, right? Yeah. The kind of management modules what you have built within our servers, which you typically call them as iDRAC, right? And also we have got a whole bunch of tools like Open Managed Enterprise. It's one of the finest tools what we have, which is basically used to monitor and manage the day zero and day one operations seamlessly, right? From a single dashboard. And that can also integrate with we have got APIs to connect to any cloud environment. It could be a VMware vCenter, it could be a Microsoft platform, or it could be even a regular, regular physical servers, right? So you can monitor and manage up to 8,000 servers from a single console, right? So that's something which you do. It can do a whole bunch of activities, not only from deployment of the server, but also giving the health report of the server, giving you predictive analysis in terms of the health reports and so on, and also managing the day-to-day failures and predictive failures and so on. And that's complete automated, right? We also have features like Power Manager, which basically helps the customer to understand what is the power consumption. Sustainability is a great factor for them nowadays, right? So they need to understand how much power are they consuming and what they can do to consume lesser power. It gives you a report like that. Now, that's something to do with the health of the server and management of the server. On top of it, we have a whole suite of Cloud IQ, which is basically cloud-based monitoring software, which gives a very holistic view of the customer's data center, right? Not only in terms of health of the data center, but also in terms of performance. It gives you metrics where it basically advises you that you can move certain workload from this server to that server, including the storage also, right? So you can have a holistic view of what's happening at the server, at the database level, also at the level of VM. So we have got APIs for that, which basically goes and gels with the VMware infrastructure, right? So these kind of suits and much more applications are developed with our engineering, which basically helps the customer to work around the day-to-day activities. Now, there are two other main factors inside this, right? One is we have to ensure that security is one of the topmost priority for customers, right?
Okay, yeah.
The kind of attacks what you see happening in the industry, not only in any specific industry, but across industry, you are seeing these problems, right? So we try our best to keep our products much more in a cyber resilient architecture. And I'm not talking about just the software, I'm talking about the hardware, right? Where we have tools like Silicon Root of Trust, right? Secure arrays, right? Remote shutdowns and so on, right? So we have built-in features within the hardware infrastructure itself, which can make your environment much more secure. Because of it, most of the attacks are not happening at the application level. It's all happening at the hardware, right? That's exactly what a ransomware also does, right? So we have a cyber resilient architecture, plus on top of it, we have a whole bunch of CRS suite, which helps the customer to secure the data, right? And yes, sustainability is one more key criteria on that, which we'll probably discuss a little more later, right? So that's something which is happening across the hardware industry in terms of compute. Now, I also wanted to just ask you, like, there are a lot of workloads. We talk about workload, we talk about AI, we talk about ML and so on, and even regular virtualization. We talk about Dockers and containers nowadays. Customers are moving towards that, right? Now, tell me, when you talk to most of the CIOs or even the IT admins, right? What are the critical workloads which can benefit out of this kind of a transformation?
Well, this is quite a question, if you ask me, right? It is not so easy to clearly demarcate what are the best workloads, but there are thumb rules, right? So some of the trends that are happening today is, earlier data was being moved around where compute was available, right? Because the data could be generated from edge, or it could be at a data center, or it could be any of your applications. The data was always moved to where compute was available.
Exactly.
But today, what we are seeing as a reality is edge is becoming more and more prevalent. We want to move compute as close as possible to where the data is getting generated. Now, when it comes to edge, there are again multiple demarcations around far edge, near edge, and where the decisions are happening. Like, for example, autonomous vehicles cannot expect the data to go to a public cloud, get processed, and come back to you to tell whether you take a turn or whether you apply a brake.
Absolutely.
Right? So the decisions have to be taken instantaneously, and it has to be taken at the place where the data is getting generated. So when it comes to workloads such as that, hybrid infrastructure where you want to be able to store the data locally to process it instantaneously, at the same time, keep a trend of it and send that data into a public cloud, or maybe a core data center where analytics and trends and maybe model training can be easily done in a hybrid setup like this, right? AI and machine learning, a lot of development, model development happens around in the core or in the data centers, while the inferencing happens at the edge. Right? Similarly, there are many performance sensitive workloads that need tremendous amount of scale up, and those are not necessarily very well suited in a public cloud deployments. There are many times you want to have more GPUs, more accelerators available for that workload to run function well. So that's a typical use case that we have seen a lot of customers moving around. So as such, if you really look at bigger the workloads that are sensitive in terms of performance or even security for that matter, 2/3 of the CIOs do not have the confidence that the data on a public cloud is secure. right? Whenever they want to put an any data that is more like an intellectual property for their organization, they have multiple thoughts about it, right? So those are not necessarily the best workloads that you want to keep it on a public cloud. You might want to leave them on premises, but there are a lot of workloads which can benefit from public cloud. For example, anything that is dynamic in nature, where the workload scales up and down dynamically. Auto scaling is the term used for that. If the workload is in such a category, public cloud might be a great place to have. Similarly, anything that is say new idea or a new project that you do not want to wait for a few months for the resources to be available to convert that thought into idea into a product, public cloud might be a great use case. So in my perspective, using what is best for the organization and wherever it is available, it is on-prem, it is on a public cloud, it could be on an edge, leveraging the best of the breed technology to meet the outcome is extremely critical, but with a strategy in place that tells you where the workload is going to be deployed today and where it is going to sustain, and what could be the decision factors to move that workload whenever you would want from on-prem to public cloud or public cloud to edge or wherever it is. You should have that flexibility in hand to move the workload wherever you would want at a click of a button, or maybe at the minimal possible intervention from your IT team. That way, you will ensure that the workloads are seamless and you are getting the best of the return of investment that you're doing towards these technologies.
Rightly said. In fact, one of the key challenges, what or the cost which incurs, is on the ingress and egress of data, right?
Absolutely.
You would try to keep the distance as minimal as possible, not just for latency purposes, but also for the cost purposes, right? And it's not that you just keep moving around workloads then and there. So a lot of planning is required in that. And I remember you talking about edge, right? Edge, as I told you, if you look at another 5 years, I think 80% of the data crunching would be done at the edge locations only, right? Only probably the post-process data would be just sent to a data center for just for archival purpose or whatever it is. Now, keeping that in mind, I was talking about customized infrastructure, right? Or purpose-built infrastructure. Now, if you look at the kind of offerings what we have for edge, right? So we have got a wide range of offerings,
Yes.
which could be as just a regular compute to a GPU-enabled compute, which is especially in terms of your example which you gave me in terms of self-driven cars. You will have data coming in from cameras, from sensors, the traffic data, and so on, and you have to take a split-second decision on are you going to turn left, right, or accelerate or go back, right? So those kind of processing is needed at the edge locations. If we have got edge products which are like most of our edge products are typically rugged in nature, it can actually withstand temperature from -5 degrees to +55 degrees centigrade, right? And it could be a dusty environment. These are dust proof, right? You do not need a data center for them. You don't need even a server room for that, right? So those kinds of machines which are built around and they're customized for these specific use cases, right? And they can obviously come in various form factors, from a one socket machine to two socket machine to a blade kind of a solution. In fact, the small blade kind of a solution where you need redundancy across, right? So that we do have come up with such products, right?
That's in terms of use cases, there are plenty, and I think Dell is aptly positioned to be able to solve many of these challenges that most customers come across. I also have a curious question, Vishwa. Today, everybody is talking about sustainability, right? What do Dell Technologies have in terms of sustainability initiatives? Do we help customers? Can we work with customers to solve their sustainability requirements or goals that they might have put together?
Absolutely, Sugumar. You rightly said sustainability is a key buzzword going on in the industry across all verticals. In fact, it's not only towards manufacturing or towards BFSI and so on, right? Everyone is talking sustainability, and it is a mandate from government also to focus more on that nowadays, right? Now, there are a whole bunch of activities happening across sustainability. Even though there's a lot of efforts going on at the edge level or at the CSG products, in the data center space, we are coming up massive, right? We have to focus a lot on sustainability. The reason all being, servers are becoming more powerful in nature, right? And as the servers become powerful, they consume a lot of power.
Not only GPUs as well.
Yeah, absolutely. GPUs. My God, the GPUs consume a whole bunch of power, right? You look at the TDPs of them, you'll go bonkers, right? So now what happens is that now processors are becoming faster. They obviously need a lot of power to compute. Plus, on top of it, they dissipate a lot of heat. And you need a lot of power again to cool them down, right?
Absolutely.
And these powerful servers are actually becoming, the footprint is becoming lesser and lesser. So for example, you take a 260 core CPUs, which can go up to a massive TDP, and you fit them in a one new server infrastructure, you can expect what kind of heat it would dissipate, right? So we are doing a lot in that area to help the customers to attain their sustainability goals, right? So there are a couple of areas where we focus mostly. One is being the design of the servers, right? The way the servers is designed are actually meant for the airflow to basically give a efficient cooling to you, right? You don't need the servers to be running all the fans at the same RPM at all given point in time, unnecessarily wasting electricity, right? So we have some kind of AI built within the server itself, which can detect which area or which zone of the server is actually hot and spin up those fans only, right? So as on when required. So in that way, we have some concept called multi-vector cooling, which we introduced in the previous generation itself, right? Which is a more efficient way of cooling in terms of air cooling, right? Now, air cooling has been since ages, right? Now there's a lot of focus I can see in the industry towards something called as liquid cooling coming into picture. Right? And if you look at the portfolio, what we have, almost all the products are actually designed for liquid cooling, right? And there are large-scale installations happening around liquid cooling, even in India, right? Now, liquid cooling is a very interesting concept. It does need some investment initially, but eventually, for the long term, you save a lot of money, right? And you would actually have a better PUE, right? Because PUE is a factor you measure on how your data centers performance is there in terms of sustainability, right? Now, in terms of liquid cooling, it's a mix of air plus liquid and fully liquid, right? So we have got two types of solution in place, and our servers are basically designed for that. So we have solutions like DLC or DCLC. So these are called direct contact liquid cooling, where in turn you have a liquid which basically goes and cools down the CPU, and almost 70 to 75% of the heat is dissipated by the CPU. So the most of at least 70% of your cooling is done with the help of liquid, right? And the rest of the components can be air cooled. Now, by doing so, what happens is that even though you have a rack of 48U or 42U, you would end up, if it's just an air cooling, you would end up just putting hardly 13, 14 or 15 servers, not more than that, because you would have a limitation on power per rack, right? Right. Now, by doing so, you can actually accommodate more and more servers within the same rack. Now, eventually what you're saving cost of the power, cost of cooling the infrastructure, and you're saving real estate, right? Now, if you think of the kind of density you could achieve in a rack, if you go with a direct liquid cooling, you can actually go up to 40 servers. From 15 to 40 is a massive jump, right? And you would save data center space. You would actually save a lot of not only the space. If you're a colo user, right, you would save a lot of billing, which they typically do, right? So that's one area we are focusing in terms of DCLC. Then the other way which you look at apart from DLC is the liquid immersion cooling, which we call as LIC, right? Now that's a very interesting concept where the entire server gets immersed in a coolant solution. Now that coolant is not any given coolant. Obviously, it's a specialized coolant, which is corrosion free. It is non-conductive in nature, right? Non-toxic, right? By doing so, your 100% of the cooling is basically done by liquid itself. And you can achieve up to 1.1 PUE. That's the kind of number we're looking at, right? So for one, so 1.1 PUE is a dream for everyone, actually, right? And
so we have helped a few customers as well.
Absolutely, we have got massive installations of that, right? And you know what? Giving back to the grid is a very good, is a nice feeling, right? That you basically for every installation you do, you basically save a lot of electricity you can use on some houses, right? Which government can basically use, right? So that's the kind of efficiency we are looking at, and with the help of liquid immersion cooling, obviously, in a longer run, that's going to be massively beneficial. You don't only save costs, you obviously go much more eco-friendly. Sustainability factor comes into picture, carbon footprint reduces, right? Everyone is talking about that.
Even the reliability of the servers.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, for example, if the kind of guarantee we give on the liquid itself, we promise up to 10 years of lifetime for the liquid, right? You absolutely don't require air conditioning. Of course, you need a little bit of air conditioning for human people to just walk around, right? Other than that, the infrastructure doesn't require any kind of air conditioning. So that's the kind of that's the kind of focus we are doing now. And it's not theoretical in nature. It is practical. It is being done, tested, and it is running even as of
production.
Today. In production, yes, absolutely. Right. So that's something which you are doing in terms of sustainability.
Wonderful to know, Vishwa.
Yeah.
In terms of summary, I just wanted to take your thoughts on what do you think is the future of hybrid IT is going to be?
Okay, so future of hybrid IT is absolutely going to be multi-cloud, except for areas where you specified where the data needs to be at the edge, right? And what's going to happen eventually is that a customer will no more just have one single data center. They don't want to take entire ownership of data center. They will have their own data centers for the critical applications. They would have definitely co-location units, right? And obviously you'll have a lot of other cloud service providers. Right? Now there's a very interesting thing is going on, even though with all these things going on, right? We are also focusing a lot on how we can help the customers in terms of hybrid infrastructure and how we can give the customers a flexible model to work with, right? All the CSPs probably give pay as you grow kind of a infrastructure, right? So what we have also done is that we have come up with a latest offering called Apex, right? Now, what Apex also does is that customer can have his own infrastructure, either on his location or in a colo, but he would be built as per the utilization, right? And it's elastic in nature. So today, for example, customers running X workload, right? Tomorrow they go through a merger or acquisition, or they probably bring in new applications. They really do not have to wait for them to have a process of purchasing servers, then waiting for that to get deployed and so on. Which is very flexible in nature. So the moment they want more resources, we give them the resources immediately. So it is elastic in nature and flexible in nature, right? So now what we are doing, or what the customer's future will look like, is that they will be using all the resources what they have. There are solutions coming up where we orchestrate on top of everything. Customers have a single pane of glass to manage everything. And they have to reach, if someone has to reach CMM level 5, they have to go with fully automated systems, right? People start with CMM 0, then they go for CMM 1, 2, 3, and eventually everyone wants to achieve CMM level 5, right? So once they hit that area, they're a fully fledged multi-cloud user. And that's what every CIO's aspiration is there, right? And except for those workloads which can't fit in the cloud environment, as you rightly mentioned. So that's my whole perspective about that. Quickly, I just want to understand one very small key factor. Uh, how do you think hybrid cloud enables unifying operations across enterprises? You have multiple enterprises, right? So how basically it unifies operations? So if you can give some perspective to that.
Well, this is as complex as it can get.
Yeah.
Because the standardization of the technologies that are used, the complexity that comes in with acquisitions and mergers that you highlighted, right? Or it could be just procurement of different enterprises. So one of the ways, and we all know multi-cloud is the way to go forward. There is really no other choice unless you want to live under the rocks, right? So when it comes to complexity, the only way to avoid complexity, in my opinion, is to leverage standard tools like APIs, for example, to automate most of the process, eliminate the manual intervention for most of the mundane jobs that we do. APIs are today, REST API could be one of the primary used API, but there could be many that we can leverage. What this brings in is an automation tool that can talk a language of an API to every component that comes in. So you're no more locked into a particular vendor, nor hindered by the inability of that particular technology to be able to adapt to the new demands within your organization. So what an API does is gives you that flexibility to buy what you need at the best possible technology, best possible price, complexity, simplicity, right? And deploy it within your organization, but manage it, operate it with the benefits of standard operating procedures that you might have developed for anything else. So all of these other components becomes more of a plug and play. When it comes to the technologies that are available today, there are many of these infrastructure as a code solutions that we come across, where customers have started leveraging tool sets like Ansible, for example, yes, to be able to automate most of this and deliver infrastructure as a code. There are cloud configuration managers like, for example, Terraforms, which are very, very widely used to ensure that day zero, which is typically the deployment, which either a partner or the OEM takes care of, even that can be automated. So day zero, day one, all the operations can be taken care and with these automation tools. And the next big step is something about observability. More and more organizations want to be able to predict what can go wrong before it goes wrong, because after it has gone wrong, to be able to correct it might be something which is expensive from a time as well as money point of view.
Absolutely.
So observability is becoming more and more critical these days, and APIs give you that benefit of having a single pane of view across all the product portfolios that you come across. And that's another area where we see a lot of development happening and a lot of investments happening from customers' point of view, because it directly impacts your downtime and gives more uptime for your organization. And when it comes to different teams that are handling uh, different solutions and isolated, that's all sort of getting addressed these days. It is eventually becoming a more standard operation, consistent operation across wherever, whatever different departments that are there and different enterprises that are using them. So this, in a way, I would say, is becoming the standard going forward. And in my opinion, that is the future of hybrid IT. You need to have, immaterial of where your workload runs, you should be able to pick up where your workload should run, and immaterial of where your workload is running, you should be able to manage and monitor and operate it seamlessly. That is what I believe. That is what Dell believes, and that is what we are hearing a lot of customers aspire to get to. And we don't. I would say we are not yet there as IT people. We are still aspiring to get there, but I think it is not very far off. It's very clear that within no time we will realize that all of these standardizations will happen.
Absolutely. Well said. Yes, of course, because I came across certain areas where the customer wanted help or a consultancy kind of approach where we can go and assess their environment, how ready are they for embracing cloud and so on. So obviously we have got specialists who basically help those customers.
Absolutely. We can do application profiling for them,
exactly,
which can help sort of give them a clarity on which workloads are best suited to run where. And that has always been Dell philosophy, to run your workload in the right place. That way you get the best return of investment, the best the simplicity that you would want to, and outcomes that you're looking at.
Perfect. Well, Sugumar, it was great talking to you, right? And
same here, Vishwa.
Thank
it
you.
was a pleasure.
Mostly,
thanks for your time.
I hope our customers have also enjoyed this conversation. So any questions they have or anything they want to understand or know more, please feel free to reach out to us. Contact details are obviously there in the chat or the video, right? So thank you very much once again. And thank you customers to be a part of it and everyone who has been listening to this webinar, and have a nice time.
Thank you so much.